tournaments or I can help someone, then that's the role I want to play.
The World Cup. I expected you to be the superstar. I said to you beforehand, Jeff, I think this is going to be your moment. Yet it didn't quite happen the way so many other things in your life have. Why not?
I sort of took a beating at the first game of the World Cup and never really recovered. The Irish came out in the first game and, you know, they just took me to pieces. And then I had that unfortunate incident when I landed on my back of my neck and I had a little bit of a vision problem that, you know, meant that I had to sit out the next game. And sort of, it wasn't so much a loss of confidence, but I then knew that there was a lot of pressure on my place that I knew I had to perform. And, you know, I was happy with the way I was playing. I thought I played quite well against England and Japan. Had a shocker against Scotland. And then the World Cup final just ended up being a disaster with, you know, the food poisoning incident, which, you know, was one that that we just couldn't avoid, and it happened, and you know, we had to get on with it. But overall, it was a great experience to be a part of. I think something that, you know, I look forward to going to a game because it was basically playing to be the world champion, and playing in a country like South Africa was tremendous. Where they're so fanatical about their sport.
One of the fascinations of sport is that you can never predict what's going to happen. It's one of the reasons I'm opposed to sports betting. And I went to watch you play against Scotland, and I thought he's never missed an opportunity in his whole life. This is his first chance to play as a fullback in a test match. And like you, I thought it's all going to happen. Dry ground, it was all there. Were you a bit too keen, a bit too tense that day?
I think what happened was I wasn't prepared for the opportunity because I hadn't played fullback all year. I hadn't played any games there, and I was out of sorts. It's like that at fullback. If you're not playing there, you're always 1 or 2 steps behind where the ball's going to bounce, where it's going to land. Your timing's not quite right. You find it difficult to get in the flow of the game, and that's what it did for me. And then, you know, once that starts happening, you start trying too hard, trying to give it more than you the need to. You just need to relax and get into it. And I didn't on that day. And, you know, I was just in the end pretty happy that we'd won and I played so badly because, you know, there's games where you play badly and you lose, but to get away with the win was great. And for me to come off, and I was disappointed, but knowing that, you know, there were still places for me to go, and I knew that fullback was my true position.
You mentioned food poisoning before. Do you really believe that there was food that was poisoned or something that was poisoned?
No, I don't believe that at all. I just think there was an unfortunate incident, and it was just something that we couldn't avoid and didn't avoid. And
would it have been better not to have moaned about it, wouldn't we?
I don't know. I just think it was one of the contributing factors. Well, it was a contributing factor to why we didn't play so well. But, you know, you can't make any excuses. South Africa came out there, and at the end of the day, the score's 15-12, and we can never change that. And, you know, we've just got to go back there this year to South Africa and prove a point.
Jonah Lomu, how do you avoid marking him?
You've got to be in the same team as him, I've figured out. You know, Jonah's obviously a tremendous player. He's a great attacking weapon, and he's brilliant when he gets the ball in his hands, and he's really improved on most facets of his game. In my mind, you know, I'm lucky I'm one of the few people that's almost as quick as him, so I can sort of hang around with him and try and get an outside or get a side-on tackle. You know, I've never been in the unfortunate situation that Mike Catt was in the World Cup where he's running full steam at me and going to run over me. But, you know, obviously he's a tremendous player.
That's going to happen one day.
It's going to happen one day.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to go as low as I can to the ground and just hopefully trip him up, you know. And, you know, he's obviously... you just got to get in there and tackle him. And if you're intimidated by him, then you'll never tackle him. But if you get in there and if you get your technique right and hold on for dear life and then hope 3 other guys jump on his back, then you'll probably track him down. But, you know, I think, you know, what happened last year was great for the guy.
Yeah, fantastic season for him, wasn't it?
Oh, tremendous. I mean, he played such good rugby. He was fit and healthy, and I just hope this season the same thing will happen. I'm sure it can. You know, I know he's really motivated. He's looking forward to playing his rugby in New Zealand, and, you know, I think he's really happy that now all this contract stuff's finally getting out of the way from him. He hasn't got anything to worry about. He can worry about playing rugby.
Carisbrook crowds, best in the world?
Definitely best in the world. We were sort of a bit poorer than last year. We didn't play so well at home, but a great atmosphere down there. The students are just tremendous. I think the public in Dunedin gets right behind their sporting team, and it's sort of like a culture for them. I mean, the rugby on Saturday is something that everyone does, and when I think the one reason they do appreciate it is because we do play entertaining football, and, you know, to a point we've sort of every other team in the country's found us out and said, well, you know, they're going to run the ball from everywhere, and we've sort of had to ease back from that attitude a bit, and we've lost a couple of key players, well, 2 or 3 key players now that we're obviously in a real rebuilding stage, and we've just got to, once again, bring our levels up and perform at the national level.
Now, you live in the atmosphere of that support. You're a double All Black. All Blacks are heroes in this country. Jeff, how do you cope with all of that at the age that you're at now?
I've certainly got used to the fact that, you know, people do look up to you, or they do, recognise you when you're on the street, and they do, want to come and speak to you. And, that's part of the job, and that's part of something that I like dealing with the public, and I like talking to them about what's going on because, I think they've got a right to know about what it's like to be like a sportsman. I'm very, very fortunate. Like I said, I've got a strong background, a strong family background who do keep me down to earth and take me out and play golf with me and give me a beating occasionally, and always keep me down, knowing that where I'm at and where I came from and what it's all about, and making sure that on top of all things, whether I'm being successful or not, I'm still enjoying the sport.
Do people give you a hard time? We hear about the tall poppy syndrome and about them shooting people down in this country all the time. Do you get a hard time from some?
I do from some. People still bring up George Gregan quite a lot. And I've learned.
Notice
to deal with
not
that.
Raised in this interview.
Not raised in this interview. I should hope not,
Murray.
But it was quite funny. I was playing a game. I was up in Barry Cooper's benefit game in Whangarei, and I was fielding on the boundary, and someone was out to say, "Remember George Gregan?" I said, "Yeah, I remember George. Good mate of mine." But people do give me a hard time about some incidents, and they ask me what happened in the World Cup and all that sort of stuff. But I don't mind that at all. I mean, they've got a right to know what sort of happened and how I feel about those sort of things, and but I certainly don't avoid the situation because I like to be with the public, and I like to talk about what's been going on.
All the successes you've had, and I really envy you those. There's one that you could have that I could never have had. Make 100 in a Test match, and I don't think you're going to make that now either, are you?
I don't know.
So what's going to happen with your cricket, Jeff?
I don't know. I mean, I'm very optimistic about what's going to happen with cricket. I don't think there'll be a year now that I won't play. After a 2-year break and then coming back this year.
You really enjoyed it?
Oh, I've loved it. I mean, I've just had a great time. We've had a great team atmosphere in Dunedin. The coach, Vaughan Johnson's done a great job, and Stu McCullum, the selectors, have kept the same bunch of guys together, and we've got an atmosphere that is really enjoyable. We haven't performed as well as we possibly could, but I think that's a learning curve, and we haven't quite got a depth of experience there.
Very young side, isn't it?
Very young side, but I think we're really enjoying our cricket, and now we're starting to get a belief in each other and a belief in our own ability that maybe we can perform at the highest level. And I think that anyone that writes a Tago off is certainly asking for trouble.
What about a World Cup? Because the one-day game's made for you, isn't it? You can bat, you can bowl, you love fielding. You do love fielding, don't you?
I love doing anything in the game. I mean, I love being an all-rounder. I love being able to do those talents in the game, just getting involved and doing what I do best, which is compete. And if I'm not in the game, I'm bored pretty much. So I've got to get in there and do that. But a World Cup, maybe one day I'd like to do that. I've certainly got aspirations to represent New Zealand again. I certainly can't do it this year, and I'd have to reassess the way things are going and where my commitments lie with rugby. But I want to represent New Zealand at cricket again, and I'll do everything that I possibly can to get there.
Well, most New Zealanders are sitting back right now thinking about Rugby Super 12, just started. They're thinking also about you because you epitomise what the young professional in rugby is going to be and going to do. What do you think Rugby Super 12 is going to do for our game?
I think it's going to bring international talent to this country to see them play, and we're going to see the best provinces in pretty much in the Southern Hemisphere play rugby against each other. And I think that's a good thing. I think, if the public can get out and watch the best players, they're going to see the best games. And I think the Super 12 is a great concept. It's certainly looking forward to the future. I think it's making it difficult for international players now, though. I mean, we're talking an eight-month season now. If you want to play, if you're going to be.
If I work 12 months a year and I don't make half as much as most of those players make, I've got no sympathy for that.
Oh,
8 months,
you've got no
mate, they should play 12 months
mate.
For that sort of money.
Yeah, I can understand
You think about
that.
it from my viewpoint,
I do.
or from people watching this, they must be all thinking the same thing. Hey, this is incredible money.
It is very, very good.
So my
money.
heart's not going to bleed for you guys anymore, and there'll be a change of attitude from blokes like me, won't there?
I'm sure there will be. I think the traditionalists will stand back and say, well, if they're getting that much money, they've got to play plenty of rugby so we can see them. I can appreciate that, but I'm sure that if you're a rugby enthusiast, that you'll appreciate good football. And, the one thing you don't want is that the fact that you're playing that many games, that guys are getting injured, they're getting down on the game, they're mentally frustrated, they're mentally tired, and then that's when your performance level will drop. And you'll find that, this year is going to be a really testing time for the All Blacks. For those players that do represent New Zealand and play their 11 tests this year, how are they going to feel when the National Championship comes along? And it could be a little bit like what happened this year, where a lot of players really weren't into it for the first 4 or 5 games, and the form sort of dropped away, simply because it's been such a tough year. So, I think players are going to have to learn to handle the play, 35, 40 games a year. And if, you know, if that's
Can
what they're
you
asking...
handle that, Jeff?
I think I can in my position, where I play from. I don't know if the front five can handle that, and the loose forwards.
Well, there are other demands as well. You can handle this sort of interchange quite easily, and you actually thrive on it. I can always tell when I interview you that you do. But there are others who can't, won't, and don't know how to. They don't turn up to practice on time. If you arrange an interview with them, they're not there. Now, is the public going to tolerate that when they're on about $250,000 a year?
Exactly. I wouldn't tolerate that if I was the public, and I wouldn't, you know, as a player myself, I wouldn't expect that of other players. I think they've got to stand up to their responsibilities now. I mean, and that's what it is. You've got a responsibility to the public and to the New Zealand Rugby Union that you perform to the best of your ability, and you take on the whole job of promoting rugby in New Zealand, which is, like you say, dealing with the media, dealing with the public, and playing the game as the best you possibly can. And you know, people are going to have to learn to deal with that, and hopefully we can get into the professional circle where they do get some sort of training, they get some guidance and leadership going in, so they are prepared for what they've got to do, and that they can project a great image of the game, which the game is. You know, I'd hate to see this game go down for the fact that now they're paying us money. I think it's just a case of good management, good marketing, and the players still loving to play the game.
And that's absolutely vital, isn't it? With all the training and everything else, promise me one thing, you never change from what you are at the moment.
Exactly, and I never will. I mean, I go out there to play the game, and that's why, you know, this money, all money does is make things a little bit easier to train, to make you perform better. And if the players go in with that attitude, then I think rugby will thrive. If it does, they don't, and they don't try and lift their levels and decide to say, well, I've got to perform better because I have a responsibility to myself as well as the public. And, you know, that's something that I'm really looking forward to when finally I start training for rugby. So
is your final responsibility to you, the sportsman?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, obviously you've got to look to the public. I think it's shared there. For me, I'm looking to myself to lift my performance, and overall then hopefully the public will, you know, enjoy watching me and the team play because we're performing better.
Jeff, I always enjoy watching you play, and thanks so much for joining us.
No problems, Murray.
And we'll have another Herald Card Deaker profile next week.